would ever love a woman that fat? The cruel words sliced through the elegant restaurant, louder than the clinking glasses. Conversations stopped. A few customers burst into laughter. Others reached for their phones, eager to capture another stranger's humiliation. Emily stood frozen in her waitress uniform, gripping a silver tray so tightly her hands trembled. Across the room, her ex-boyfriend wrapped his arm around his stunning fiancée and smirked as if breaking her heart were tonight's entertainment. Then a chair scraped against the marble floor. Every head turned. The city's most feared mafia boss rose without a word, walked straight toward the trembling waitress, gently lifted her chin, and kissed her. The laughter vanished, but no one in that room knew the real reason he had done it. For a long moment, no one moved. The kiss had lasted only a heartbeat, yet it seemed to silence an entire restaurant. Emily slowly opened her eyes, too stunned to understand what had just happened. Her cheeks burned with embarrassment as dozens of strangers stared at her. Some still held their phones in the air, frozen in the middle of recording. The man standing before her showed no trace of emotion. Vincent DeLuca, the ruthless mafia boss whose name carried enough weight to empty a room with a single phone call, simply stepped back and adjusted the cuff of his tailored black suit as though nothing extraordinary had happened. Across the dining room, Tyler's smug grin disappeared. "What the hell was that?" he demanded, tightening his arm around his glamorous fiancée, Vanessa. "Is this some kind of joke?" No one answered him. Only minutes earlier, Tyler had been enjoying every second of humiliating the woman he had once claimed to love. He had deliberately chosen this restaurant for one reason. He knew Emily worked there. As she approached their table to refill their champagne glasses, Tyler had stood up dramatically and slipped an expensive diamond ring onto Vanessa's finger. The surrounding guests applauded. Emily had forced herself to smile politely. "Congratulations," she had whispered. Tyler wasn't satisfied. He looked Emily up and down with exaggerated disgust before raising his voice loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "You know why we're perfect together," he said, pulling Vanessa closer. "Because she actually takes care of herself." Several people chuckled. Tyler glanced at Emily again. "You always thought someone would love you for your personality." He laughed. "But let's be honest." His eyes narrowed cruelly. "Who would choose someone too fat to even look at?" The laughter spread from one table to another. Emily felt every pair of eyes land on her. She had endured cruel comments before. She had survived whispers behind her back, but hearing those words from the man who had once promised forever shattered something inside her. Her fingers tightened around the serving tray until they turned white. She refused to cry. Not here. Not in front of them. Then Vincent took a single step forward. His dark gaze swept across the room, stopping on each person who had laughed. The restaurant became so quiet that the soft piano music suddenly sounded unbearably loud. No threats, no shouting, just silence. And somehow, that silence frightened everyone more than anger ever could. The silence didn't last. It shattered beneath a wave of whispers that rolled through the restaurant like distant thunder. "Oh my God, did he really kiss her? Isn't that Vincent DeLuca?" Someone zoomed in with a phone camera. Another customer hurried toward the exit, clearly unwilling to be anywhere near a man whose reputation inspired equal parts fear and fascination. Emily's heartbeat pounded so loudly she could barely hear the voices around her. She looked at Vincent as though he were a stranger from another world. "What?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "What did you just do?" Vincent met her gaze without hesitation. He didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his jacket, placed several crisp $100 bills on the nearest table to cover every interrupted meal, then turned toward the restaurant entrance. It was as if the kiss required no explanation. As if it had been the simplest decision in the world. "Wait." Emily's voice stopped him. She took a shaky breath and hurried after him, ignoring the curious stares following her every step. Outside, the cool evening air struck her flushed face. Luxury cars lined the curb. 3 men, in dark suits, stood beside a black sedan, instantly lowering their heads when Vincent approached. Emily had never seen security like that before. She suddenly realized just how dangerous the man before her might truly be. "I asked you a question." Vincent turned slowly. She searched his face for pity, for amusement, for regret. She found none. Instead, she saw only calm certainty. Her eyes filled with tears she had fought so desperately to hide. "Was that supposed to make me feel better?" she asked. "You don't even know me." Her voice cracked. "I've spent years trying to prove I'm more than my appearance." She laughed bitterly. "And now the whole internet is probably going to remember me as the fat waitress some powerful man kissed out of sympathy." The words hung heavily between them. For the first time that evening, Vincent's expression shifted ever so slightly. Not guilt, disappointment, not in her. In the world that had taught her to believe that kindness always came with hidden motives. He took one slow step closer. "I wasn't saving you." Emily frowned. His voice remained low and steady. "I was stopping them." She blinked. "They had already decided your worth before you spoke a single word." He glanced back toward the restaurant windows, where faces still watched from inside. "They weren't laughing because of your size. They were laughing because they believed humiliating someone made them important." Emily stared at him, unable to respond. "No one challenged them," Vincent continued. "So I did." His words were simple. No dramatic speech, no declaration, just quiet conviction. "You think I kissed you because I felt sorry for you?" He shook his head once. "If pity had been my reason," his eyes met hers again, "I would have walked away." For several seconds, neither of them spoke. The sounds of passing traffic filled the silence. Then one of Vincent's bodyguards stepped forward cautiously, holding out a phone. "Sir." Vincent glanced at the screen. His expression remained unreadable. "The video," the guard said quietly. "It's already spreading online." Emily's stomach dropped. She had a sinking feeling that tonight's humiliation wasn't over. It had only just begun. Emily barely slept. By sunrise, the video had already reached hundreds of thousands of views. Some comments praised the mysterious Mafia Boss. Others mocked her appearance all over again. He only kissed her to make a statement. Nobody actually falls for a woman like that. She's enjoying her 15 minutes of fame. She closed the app and tossed her phone onto the bed. There was no time to cry. Her mother would be awake soon. Emily quietly entered the small bedroom at the end of their modest apartment. Sunlight filtered through faded curtains, falling across the frail woman sleeping beneath a knitted blanket. Years of illness had left Margaret too weak to work, and the mounting medical bills had become a burden Emily carried alone. "Morning, Mum," Emily whispered with a smile she didn't truly feel. Margaret noticed the dark circles beneath her daughter's eyes immediately. "You worked another double shift, didn't you?" Emily simply nodded. She never admitted that the restaurant wasn't her only job. Every morning after finishing late-night shifts, she delivered fresh bread to neighborhood cafes before returning home to prepare breakfast and help her mother with medication. 3 hours of sleep had become normal. Not because she enjoyed working, because she refused to let her mother lose the only home they had left. Across the city, Vincent DeLuca stood inside the top floor of his headquarters, looking through floor-to-ceiling windows as one of his trusted advisors placed a thick folder on his desk. "You asked for everything we could find on Emily Carter." Vincent opened it without speaking. Inside were medical bills, pay stubs, volunteer certificates, a list of overtime hours, security photographs from the restaurant. His advisor broke the silence. "She works 2 jobs." Vincent continued reading. "Sometimes 3. She covers shifts for co-workers who call in sick. She refuses tips from elderly customers who clearly need the money more than she does. Another page. Restaurant incident reports. Every complaint filed against difficult customers. Every report had one thing in common. Emily had protected her co-workers by accepting blame that wasn't hers. His advisor sighed. Most people never noticed. Vincent finally spoke. I did. The older man looked surprised. You've been watching her that long. Vincent closed the folder. The first time I came to that restaurant, a homeless veteran walked in, asking only for a glass of water. The manager wanted him removed immediately. Emily ignored the order. Instead, she bought him a hot meal using money from her own paycheck and sat with him for 10 minutes before returning to work. No cameras, no audience, no expectation of recognition. His voice remained calm. People reveal who they truly are when they believe no one is watching. Later that afternoon, Emily returned to the restaurant. The atmosphere had changed. Customers whispered as she walked past. Some smiled kindly. Others stared with open curiosity. A few even asked for photographs. Her manager approached nervously. Emily, she looked up. There's someone asking for you. She turned toward the entrance. A little girl, no older than 9, stood beside her father. The child shyly held out a folded napkin. My mum says you're beautiful, she whispered. And I think you are too. Emily's eyes filled with tears. For the first time since the humiliation, they weren't tears of pain. But across the street, inside a black sedan, Vincent watched the scene unfold in silence. His bodyguard glanced toward him. Sir, are you planning to tell her you've been protecting her for months? Vincent's eyes remained fixed on the restaurant window. No, not yet. Because there was one truth Emily still wasn't ready to hear. Their meeting had never been an accident. By the end of the week, Emily's life no longer belonged to her. It belonged to the internet. The 30-second video had spread across every major social media platform, collecting millions of views in just a few days. News outlets gave it dramatic headlines. The waitress who kissed a mafia boss. America's most mysterious public kiss. Who is the woman beside Vincent DeLuca? Television hosts debated whether the kiss had been romantic, strategic, or carefully staged. Relationship experts analyzed Vincent's body language. Fashion influencers criticized Emily's uniform. Complete strangers argued over a woman they had never met. No one asked Emily what she thought. Every morning, new interviews appeared online. Anonymous insiders claimed she had been secretly dating Vincent for months. Others insisted she had deliberately embarrassed herself to attract a wealthy man. One viral post gathered nearly 2 million likes. Never underestimate what some women will do for money. Emily read the sentence 3 times before locking her phone. She didn't recognize herself anymore. The world had transformed her into a character in a story they preferred over the truth. At the restaurant, the attention became impossible to escape. Customers requested tables in Emily's section. Some treated her with genuine kindness. Others asked invasive questions between bites of expensive steak. So, one businessman smiled. Was the kiss as romantic as it looked? Emily forced a polite smile. I'm sorry, sir. Would you like more coffee? Another customer laughed. Come on, you can tell us. Is the mafia boss your boyfriend now? Her smile faded. I'm only here to do my job. Whispers followed her everywhere. Even co-workers began looking at her differently. Not with cruelty, with uncertainty, as though they no longer knew whether she was still the same Emily. Across town, Tyler watched every interview with growing frustration. He had expected the restaurant incident to become another embarrassing memory for Emily. Instead, she had become famous. Meanwhile, nobody cared about his engagement. His fiancée, Vanessa, scrolled through another article and frowned. They're calling her inspiring. Tyler slammed his phone onto the table. Inspiring? She's manipulating everyone. Vanessa looked unconvinced. Do you actually believe that? I know Emily. Tyler leaned back confidently. She always wanted people to feel sorry for her. He smirked. She probably planned the whole thing. Vanessa raised an eyebrow. You think she planned for one of the most dangerous men in the country to kiss her in public? Tyler hesitated. For the first time, even he realized how ridiculous that sounded. Still, his pride refused to let him stop. I'll expose her. The opportunity came sooner than expected. A local television station invited Tyler to appear on a morning talk show, advertising him as Emily Carter's former boyfriend. The interview quickly went viral. The host asked the question everyone wanted answered. Did Emily ever mention Vincent DeLuca before that night? Tyler laughed. No. But Emily always dreamed of escaping her ordinary life. He leaned toward the camera. People think she's some innocent waitress. They're wrong. She's smart. She knows exactly how to make powerful men notice her. Within minutes, clips from the interview flooded social media. Some viewers believed him. Others accused him of bullying a woman who had already suffered enough. The country became divided. Team Emily. Team Tyler. News channels called it the kiss that split America. That evening, Emily sat alone in her apartment, staring at the interview playing silently on her television. She reached for the remote, then froze. A black envelope had been slipped beneath her front door. There was no stamp, no address, only 3 words embossed in silver. For Emily Carter. With trembling hands, she opened it. Inside was a single invitation. Vincent DeLuca formally requested her presence at the annual Blackstone Charity Gala, the very event where Tyler and Vanessa had already announced they would make their first public appearance as an engaged couple. Emily stared at the elegant black invitation for nearly an hour before making her decision. She wasn't going to the Blackstone Charity Gala because of Vincent. She was going because she was tired of hiding. If she kept running from every room where people whispered about her, they would control the rest of her life. On the evening of the gala, she borrowed a navy blue evening gown from one of her co-workers. It wasn't a designer label. There were no diamonds around her neck, no luxury handbag hanging from her shoulder. She looked beautiful, simply because she finally stood a little straighter. Still, as she stepped into the grand ballroom beneath glittering crystal chandeliers, she felt hundreds of eyes settle on her. The whispers began almost immediately. That's her. The waitress. The woman from the video. Vincent invited her personally. Emily ignored them and headed quietly toward the refreshment table, hoping to remain unnoticed. She should have known Tyler wouldn't allow that. There she is. His voice carried effortlessly across the ballroom. Guests turned one after another. Tyler approached with Vanessa on his arm. A confident smile spread across his face as several reporters instinctively raised their cameras. I was wondering if you'd actually show up. Emily remained calm. Good evening, Tyler, he laughed. Still pretending none of this is your fault. She met his eyes without speaking. That only irritated him more. You've become famous overnight. He gestured toward the crowd. Quite an achievement for someone who couldn't keep a relationship. A few uncomfortable chuckles echoed through the room. Emily took a slow breath. I'm not here to argue. No, Tyler replied loudly. You're here because you're hoping Vincent DeLuca will rescue you again. Several guests exchanged nervous glances. Even mentioning Vincent's name seemed dangerous. Tyler continued anyway. You've fooled everyone. He pointed directly at Emily, the sweet, innocent waitress. But I know the real you. You've always wanted attention. When you realized no ordinary man wanted you, his smile grew cruel. You found yourself a billionaire mafia boss instead. Gasps rippled across the ballroom. Vanessa shifted uncomfortably beside him. Tyler, he ignored her. What happened in that restaurant? He spread his arms dramatically. A publicity stunt. He kissed you. You got exactly what you wanted. Emily's heart pounded, but her voice remained steady. "You know that's not true." "Oh?" Tyler stepped closer. "Then tell everyone." "Why would a man like Vincent DeLuca choose someone like you?" The ballroom fell completely silent. Emily opened her mouth, but no words came. Not because Tyler was right, because she genuinely didn't know. She had asked herself the same question every night since the kiss. For one painful second, doubt returned. Maybe people really did see her exactly the way Tyler described. Maybe she had become nothing more than an object of curiosity. Tyler noticed the hesitation and smiled triumphantly. "See? Even she can't answer." The silence stretched across the room. Then the orchestra stopped playing. Every musician lowered their instruments at once. One by one, conversations faded. All eyes turned toward the entrance. The massive doors slowly opened. Vincent DeLuca entered the ballroom, wearing an impeccably tailored black tuxedo, his expression unreadable as always. He wasn't surrounded by panic. He wasn't rushing. He simply walked forward with quiet confidence. The crowd instinctively stepped aside, creating a path before him without anyone asking. His gaze never left Emily. Tyler's confident smile slowly disappeared. Vincent walked past dozens of influential guests, past politicians, past CEOs, until he stopped beside the woman everyone else had been judging. Without looking at Tyler, Vincent spoke only 4 calm words. "I believe she's waiting." He turned his eyes toward the stage. "For someone to tell the truth." The room held its breath. No one spoke. The grand ballroom, filled only moments before with laughter and whispered gossip, had become so quiet that the faint hum of the crystal chandeliers seemed almost deafening. Vincent DeLuca walked past Tyler without acknowledging him. He neither glared nor smirked. To Vincent, Tyler simply wasn't important enough to deserve either. Reaching the stage, Vincent accepted the microphone from the event host with a polite nod. The host stepped aside without a word. Hundreds of eyes followed Vincent as he looked across the room. His gaze moved slowly from table to table. He wasn't searching for Emily. He was studying everyone else. Finally, he spoke. "The biggest mistake in this room." His calm voice carried effortlessly through every corner of the ballroom. "Is believing that a woman's value can be measured by the size of her dress." A ripple of discomfort spread through the audience. Several guests lowered their eyes. Others shifted uneasily in their seats. Vincent continued. "I've spent my entire life meeting powerful people. Politicians, judges, billionaires, people who proudly wear expensive suits while hiding very cheap character." Not a single person interrupted him. He turned toward Tyler for the first time. "You judged Emily within seconds. You measured her by her appearance. You mocked her in public because you believed the crowd would reward your cruelty." Tyler's jaw tightened. "I was only telling the truth." "No." Vincent's reply came instantly. "You were revealing yourself." The words landed like a hammer. Tyler tried to laugh, but the confidence had vanished from his face. Vincent looked back at the audience. Every person who laughed that night made the same choice. You believed humiliation was entertainment. You confused confidence with cruelty. He paused. And that's exactly why so many decent people stop believing in themselves. Emily felt tears welling in her eyes. Not because she felt weak, because, for the first time, someone had described the pain she had carried for years without asking her to explain it. Vincent slowly stepped down from the stage. He stopped a few feet in front of Emily. The ballroom held its breath. The kiss. He looked directly into her eyes before finishing his sentence. Wasn't a performance. It wasn't charity. It wasn't pity. It was the first honest thing that happened in that restaurant. No cameras flashed. No applause erupted. The silence itself became the loudest response. Vincent's voice softened. When everyone else decided your dignity had a price, I chose not to let them buy it. Emily's breathing became uneven. Every cruel word Tyler had spoken, every mocking laugh, every sleepless night spent wondering if she really wasn't enough. They suddenly felt smaller, not because they had disappeared, but because someone had finally refused to accept them as truth. Vincent took one respectful step back, giving her space instead of closing the distance. I cannot decide how you see yourself. Only you can do that. But I refuse to stand quietly while others teach you to believe a lie. Around the ballroom, people who had laughed at the restaurant lowered their heads in shame. Several reporters quietly lowered their cameras. Even they understood that this moment was no longer about scandal. It was about dignity. Tyler looked around desperately for someone to support him. No one did. Even Vanessa had let go of his arm. She stared at him with an expression he had never seen before. Not admiration, disappointment. Then, without saying a single word, she slowly removed the diamond engagement ring from her finger. The tiny sound of metal touching crystal echoed through the silent ballroom. She placed the ring into Tyler's trembling hand, turned around, and walked away. For nearly 10 seconds, Tyler couldn't move. He stared at the engagement ring resting in his palm, as though it belonged to someone else. "Vanessa," his voice cracked. "Don't do this." She stopped, only long enough to glance back over her shoulder. "I didn't leave because another man defended a woman." She shook her head. "I left because you spent years proving you don't know how to respect one." Then she walked away. The ballroom doors closed behind her with a soft click. The sound echoed through the silent hall. Tyler suddenly realized that every camera in the room was no longer pointing at Emily. They were pointing at him. Within hours, clips from the gala flooded the internet. This time, it wasn't the kiss that captured the nation's attention. It was Vincent's speech. Millions watched the video. Millions shared it. His words spread far beyond the ballroom. A woman's value cannot be measured by the size of her dress. The sentence appeared on television broadcasts, podcasts, newspaper headlines, and social media pages across the country. Teachers quoted it in classrooms. Parents shared it with their children. Support groups for women reposted the speech, thanking Vincent for saying aloud what so many people had spent years needing to hear. Meanwhile, Tyler's interview from the previous week resurfaced. Side by side, viewers compared his insults with Vincent's calm defense of Emily. Public opinion changed almost overnight. Companies quietly ended their partnerships with Tyler's marketing firm. Friends stopped returning his calls. Even those who had laughed with him at the restaurant began deleting old photos and distancing themselves from him. No one wanted to be associated with a man whose cruelty had become national news. Emily's life changed just as dramatically, but in a very different way. The restaurant was suddenly booked weeks in advance. Customers didn't come to stare anymore. They came to meet the waitress who had refused to let humiliation define her. Some left handwritten notes instead of tips. "Thank you for reminding my daughter she's enough. Your courage helped my wife through a difficult week. Please never let anyone convince you that kindness is weakness." Emily kept every note inside a small wooden box beneath her bed. Whenever self-doubt returned, she opened the box and read them again. One afternoon, an elderly couple requested her table. As Emily poured their coffee, the older gentleman hesitated before speaking. "I owe you an apology." Emily looked surprised. "I laughed that night." His eyes filled with regret. "I didn't know your story." Emily smiled gently. "You didn't need to know my story." He lowered his head. "I simply should have known better." For the first time in years, Emily understood something profound. Respect wasn't earned by becoming thinner, or richer, or famous. Real respect began the moment people chose to see another human being before they judged them. Across the room, the restaurant door opened. Vincent stepped inside. He wasn't wearing a tailored suit this time, just a simple dark coat. Their eyes met. For the first time since that unforgettable kiss, Emily smiled before he did. Vincent chose a quiet table by the window. For the first time since the night that changed both of their lives, there were no cameras, no reporters, no curious strangers whispering behind their backs. Just 2 cups of coffee and the gentle sound of rain tapping against the glass. Emily walked over with a warm smile. "I guess this time you're really here as a customer." A faint smile appeared on Vincent's face. "I've always been one." She laughed softly, before taking the seat across from him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence no longer felt uncomfortable. It felt peaceful. Emily looked down at her hands before finally asking the question that had stayed with her since the restaurant. "Can I ask you something?" Vincent nodded. "Did you kiss me that night because you felt sorry for me?" He answered without hesitation. "No." Emily slowly lifted her eyes. "I kissed you because I couldn't stand another second of watching you believe their lies." Her breath caught. Vincent continued quietly. "They convinced you that your worth depended on whether someone chose you." He gently shook his head. "But your worth was never something they had the right to decide." Emily felt tears gathering again. This time, they came with relief, not sadness, not shame. Relief. For years, she had searched for someone who would tell her she was enough. Instead, Vincent had shown her that she had always been enough. He reached across the table but stopped halfway, giving her room to choose. "The next kiss," he said softly, "will only happen if you want it." He left his hand resting there. No pressure, no expectation, just an invitation. Emily looked at him for a long moment. Then she smiled. Not because she needed someone to rescue her, not because the world finally approved of her, but because, for the first time in years, she truly believed in the woman she had become. She reached for his hand. Their fingers intertwined naturally. Emily leaned forward. This time, she was the one who closed the distance. She kissed him gently. When they pulled apart, Vincent smiled, a genuine smile that only she had ever seen. Outside, people hurried through the rain, unaware that the most important moment in the city wasn't happening in a ballroom or beneath flashing cameras. It was happening in the quiet corner of a small restaurant, where 2 people had discovered that love begins not when someone saves you, but when someone reminds you that you were never unworthy of it in the first place.